My lawyer told me I was $400,000 in debt to the IRS. I called him a trad schizo conspiracy theorist and bought another motorcycle. You're listening to Trad Talk Radio with Frank and Brian. Welcome to another episode of Season 2 of Trad Talk Radio.
Just had to go at the same time on that.
Good to see you again, Brian.
How have you been?
I've been so good. Well, you know, worse than yesterday, better than tomorrow.
No, wait, that's backwards. That's backwards.
No, everything's great, actually.
Every day is a great day.
I'm doing much better now that I get to see you. My very best friend in the whole wide world.
Oh, that's very sweet. Ditto that, man. Ditto that.
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're going to give virtual man hugs over here.
Yep, virtual.
That's the when you go with the handshake and then the side kind of like one-armed hug.
It's the thing where you offer me the fist bump and then I just like grab your fist and shake it like a handshake.
I do go, and it is not some kind of COVID fear thing with the fist bump. I just like the fist bump.
It's a secret Freemason handshake.
Yeah, sure. Did I tell you, Frank, I'm a Freemason?
We've been infiltrated.
I'm a 99th degree Freemason.
Yeah, some news in my life. I was approached by an agent of the Freemasons, and I was told to basically sabotage this show without anyone. We're still in the sound check, right? We're not recording the actual episode.
We're not recording it. No,
Okay,
of course not. If Frank starts promoting the Novus Ordo and the synod and the synodality of the synod, then we know that he has been gotten to.
That would be very out of character for me. I think everybody would be like looking around.
What did you do with Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would not be good.
Comparing the size of my earlobes to past photos and stuff like that. There were body double.
There's about 3 people who will get that Paul VI reference there. Yes, that was.
Wait, I was making a Joe Biden reference.
Oh!
Did Paul VI go through a thing where he was?
Are you being serious?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
I didn't know about this.
There's a whole thing that Paul VI was traded out around 1971.
Really?
Yeah. They show there's a.
So
thing.
which one's the saint? Are they both saints?
I think just the persona Paul VI was canonized. No,
okay.
there are like YouTube or there's things on the internet, and this is how I know it's true because I found it on the internet. But they show pictures of Paul VI, I guess, from when he was first elected, and then there's pictures from like I don't know the early 70s, mid 70s before he died, and they're showing how his nose is bigger and his ears are bigger. And
really.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, guys.
It was one of the gifts of the Holy Ghost at the Vatican II Council, extra cartilage, extra elastic and hyaline cartilage to the nose and ears.
Well, if the sign of holiness is the size of your nose, I am one of the holiest people that I know. Oh my goodness, I'm incredibly holy. If a big nose is any indication at all.
Brian, body shaming is always wrong.
Oh, I've gone too far. I've gone too far.
Yes, indeed. But that's why we keep you around.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
What other great Catholic conspiracy theories can we get into? I know there's some real bangers out there.
Well, let's see now. There's another one about the false saint or Sister Lucia of Fatima.
Yeah, the third Fatima secret.
Well, not the third secret, but that she also got traded out.
Oh yeah,
yeah, that she was different.
Forged secret that got released.
Yeah, then the fake third secret. So those are conspiracy theories too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember all of them. There's so many.
What about the one that Medjugorje is fake? Because I've heard that going around, and Medjugorje is very praiseworthy and laudable, right? It's accepted by the church now, isn't it?
No, actually, the local bishop has said that it can endorse it. I think he's actually said don't go there on pilgrimage.
The local bishop?
I think so. Local
Wow.
bishop, yeah. Well, the Blessed Mother does have a history of we are very grateful as Catholics, very blessed as Catholics because Our Lady does appear periodically, and you can tell an authentic apparition. Number one, the church endorses it eventually, and secondly, she's very consistent in her message. So think about Fatima, right? She'll tell you to pray your rosary. She'll tell you to look to her son, make reparations. I mean, there's very consistent messages, as you would expect. when God is sending Our Lady down, His perfect creation, if you will. To
checks out. She's the seat of wisdom, after all.
There you go. And the other thing she's brief, meaning like I think Fatima was May through October of 1917,
something like that.
Yeah, and I think Lourdes was also just a few months, maybe. I think.
Yeah. So how does Medjugorje not jive?
I think it started like in the 70s and it's still going on.
It's still going on.
I think it was either the late 70s or early 1980s it started, and it's still going on.
Do you think it's mutated into like an Oracle at Delphi thing where they pay people, people pay them to see so-called apparitions?
It's in a whole industry now, I think.
Yeah, the money.
There's a lot of money,
yeah.
And what is that? It's the former Yugoslavia, right? So it's where is it actually? What?
Somewhere around there, the Balkans.
Yeah, somewhere. I don't know what countries it's in, but it doesn't seem to quite check out.
Yeah, it does sound a little fishy. Everything I've heard about it. I mean, I don't know.
Here's a trad perspective, which is if you got Lourdes, France, why would you go to Medjugorje?
Yeah.
If you have Fatima, why would you go to Medjugorje?
Yeah.
I don't really know the need for that. I'm not going to go to Garabandal. You ever hear that one in Spain? I think Spain. Garabandal.
There?
Seers of like I think it was 4 kids.
Oh.
I thought I saw a video one time of them like walking backwards or doing some weird physical thing, which seemed very demonic.
Really?
They had like a weird Linda Blair exorcist vibe.
Oh no.
And I'm like, that is not of God. And I don't think that one's really been. People have jumped on that one. I can't remember what their messages even were, but that was. I feel like that was older than Medjugorje.
Really?
Garabandal. Yeah.
When was that?
Older than Medjugorje.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Thank you for clarifying.
It's been years. I didn't really. I don't dig into these. My wife says I'm not the most curious person in the world. I just don't.
You mean you're not? She means you're not obsessed with conspiracy theories.
That's
what she means.
Yeah, I just don't. I mean, there's so much stuff I don't know that is just rock solid that I really don't need to waste time on stuff that is just questionable.
That's why I love coming to your house, because your wife catches me up on all the conspiracy theories that I need to know about.
Yeah, Frankie and Mrs. Williams are much more on the same page in certain things than I am. I just kind of sit there and start scrolling. I think a little bit. I get a little bit.
Brian's always sitting on the couch with a whiskey in his hand, like, oh, hold on, who told you that? Or what's the proof for that?
Now, for the record, when I'm sitting on the couch, I don't always have a whiskey in my hand. But I guess when you're there, maybe I have a whiskey in my hand.
I think I've seen you like once or twice with no whiskey. Oh. It's like 99 times out of 100.
Like when you come over, like before 3, like when it's in the morning. If it's like in the morning before noon, he doesn't see me with whiskey in my hand.
Yeah, he's old fashioned like that.
Yeah. Although it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, so we do have a good episode for you today lined up. I think as a little preview, a couple of things. We are gonna be talking about men in the church and some interesting numbers to go over and just general talking points, if you will. But
if we get around to it, we could beat around the bush and go on digressions about conspiracy theories and things like
there
that.
are no promises or guarantees. This is what you get for your free membership.
Sorry,
content.
listeners, you deserve so much better. But
You do.
You're stuck with us. We are the best that you got right now. Well, not the best, maybe, but
We're definitely not the best. If we're the best you got, just give up on Catholic podcasts.
I would encourage you to start shopping for a new podcast that's more substantive and better researched and better produced, and replace us with them, whoever they are.
Our production value is fantastic for a basement below a gymnasium.
It is really good.
Yeah.
All things considered, we're so blessed to have been given all this equipment by the anonymous benefactor.
Yes, he really came through. I am happy with the equipment. Very grateful to him for letting us have this.
Yeah.
But
this is strictly amateur underground radio.
Yeah.
Agents of the network, agents of the diocese, agents of the Freemasons. They're cruising the streets looking for us, looking to shoot us.
It's always we have to be very careful when we leave here after recording. We have to kind of look around and kind of run back to our cars very quickly. I do that kind of.
True.
I do that kind of like that sniper run thing where like you kind of zigzag. I zigzagged my car.
I put on a ghillie suit and I go through a vegetated runner's path.
Oh,
yeah.
Is it bad that I don't know what a ghillie suit is?
It's like it's the thing with all the fuzzy stuff on it, like the camouflage.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I was thinking Mickey Gilly, the country guy with the stutter.
Gilly is Scottish for ghost.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know
so
this.
That's Scottish game wardens used to wear them to catch poachers,
It's like a big camo fuzzy suit with a bunch of burlap strands, fuzz, like you tie bushes into it.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, well, now I know what that is.
Yeah.
Well, that's
now you
good.
can get one, so agents of the diocese don't shoot you on your way out of here, Brian. I need you alive. We all need you alive.
Yeah. All right. So what we said we're going to talk a little bit about men in the church,
Yes.
if we get a chance to get around to it, and then as a special treat after that, I think maybe it's not a special treat. I don't know. We'll find out how it goes over. You can let us know you can email us at tradtalkradio at gmail.
Tradtalkradio@gmail.com.
Or-
Special coupon code. Paul the Sixth, pray for us. Saint Paul the Sixth, pray for us.
Or on our Facebook page, Trad Talk Radio. You can let us know whether or not it's all that special of a treat. But as a special treat, after our discussion on men in the church, we are going to talk about a little bit of what we're reading and
What we're reading, what we're watching.
what we're watching, and hopefully you find it interesting. But if it's a really bad segment, just let us know and say, don't ever do that again.
I'm hoping for just like moderately bad, slightly bad. If we hit really bad, please email, let us know.
Yeah. But don't ever stop subscribing or following or liking. Smash that like button.
I
on
wouldn't go
YouTube.
that far, Brian. I mean, do what you want.
Oh.
But please keep listening. I mean, we love doing this show.
That's-
We do it
yes.
for y'all. We really
Hit
appreciate
that.
y'all
What do you do on
listening.
YouTube? You hit the bell.
Smash that like and subscribe bell.
Yeah, hit that subscribe bell, smash that like button, follow, share, tell your neighbors.
Oh,
whatever,
it's so
all
sordid.
that,
The
you
whole
know.
thing is so disgusting.
There's a YouTube channel that my kids were watching, and then they stopped watching it because the kids it was a YouTube channel of kids doing like trick shots or like little funky things with like bottle tops and basketballs and everything.
Oh, I know what you're talking. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to mention the name of the thing.
No, don't. But
Yeah,
so these kids do this stuff. But I guess apparently, like every time they would do a challenge, they would say, "If we make this shot, make sure you subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Hit the like button and share if we make the shot."
Did they make the shot, Brian?
Well, after like 100 tries and
made the
edited
shot.
it, I'm sure they made the shot. I mean, you can try anything enough times and edit it, right?
Yeah.
But my kids are like, yeah, we gave up on that because we don't want to be told to hit a like button every time we're watching a show.
I really hate that. It's patronizing.
It is. So
Yeah.
just make sure you hit the like button.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
No.
I just did that.
Oh.
Oh, it's cheesy.
We should have stayed on AM radio.
You don't have to worry.
Welcome to Trad Talk Radio with Frank and Brian.
There-
We're going to talk about your walk in the faith.
There's a lot less pressure on AM radio because you have no listeners. So really, it doesn't matter what you're doing for the
Yeah,
most
it's like
part.
nobody's listening. Might as well say whatever I want.
Say
do
whatever I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on.
hold
a
on. Yeah,
second.
here we go.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
There we
Okay.
go.
Yeah, that's good. This jar it doesn't have quite the same sound it used to because it just got so much money in it from going too far.
It's actually been fractured. Like we started seeing broken pieces of glass on the
That's
on the,
true story.
The gym table and the janitor.
We've
for the
gone
gym
too
came
far
in.
so many
Yeah.
times that we broke the too
Yeah,
far
we
jar.
had to
That's how
duct
bad
tape
we
it.
are.
It's like duct taped right now. I'll post a picture of it on Facebook.
Hold on,
Oh,
I just
man.
took a swig of my beer.
Yeah, me too.
My Oktoberfest beer.
We got to time our swigs better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure that one of us is talking when the other one's swigging.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I felt like there was something else I wanted to talk about, but it completely left my very old brain. So if I think of it later, I'll bring it up.
It must not have been that important.
Probably not.
Yeah, we'll save it for the gag reel.
For our special bloopers behind the scene episode, which isn't really going to happen. But
Yeah.
all right. So without further ado, one of the things that we want to talk about, I guess our first segment, if you want to call it that, is today is on men in the church, or more specifically, men and the TLM,
Yes.
or the traditional Latin Mass. And
Wait, is it traditional or Tridentine Latin Mass when they say TLM?
traditional.
Okay.
It's interesting. I think Tridentine used to be a very common way of describing the Latin Mass before it was termed the extraordinary form by Benedict.
I know extraordinary form is like a backhanded compliment. It's a way to cheapen the significance of the true Mass. So, I mean, is Tridentine like the same kind of thing?
So for going back, I think that extraordinary form, those who actually penned it. So it technically came out with Pope Benedict's motu proprio sumorum pontificum and the accompanying letter. I don't think it was meant by him to be backhanded. I think what it was it was a complete juridical creation. So far from being traditional, it was actually a novelty. It was a way of trying to get the Latin Mass back into Novus Ordo parishes by saying that you have these two forms, but it's the same rite, and therefore both have a place in the parish. And so I think it was those who actually coined the term meant well, but then for everybody else it became extraordinary, like extra, Like, just, yeah, whatever. You got the ordinary form, the one that we're all used to. It's ordinary. And then now we have this extra thing.
The whole thing seems like a really backwards, like Vatican II style way to reintroduce like Latin Mass in Vatican II terms and like principles and practice. It's very weird.
I completely agree. Tridentine, I don't think was viewed as a negative. Although what I never liked about it was it harkens back to Trent. Which I love that council. By the way.
Implication being it was invented at Trent.
And the implication. So when people nowadays or the last few years have called it the Tridentine Mass, all they're doing is they're trying to suggest that it's as old as Trent. And we talked about this before on the now canceled and nowhere to be found season 1 that the network took down from their YouTube channel.
Don't worry, lost but not forgotten. I've heard, Brian, on the black market that people possess copies of the episodes.
Season 1 exists still.
Yeah, season 1, it's alive and well. It's just been driven underground. So if you want a copy of any episode from season 1, ask around. You might be able to get one.
Yeah, it might be like a kind of like a Chinese ripoff version that has.
It'll be a Chinese gentleman with a camcorder standing in the parking lot with like one of those FBI satellite directional microphones.
Do you remember in the days before streaming when people would would go to the movie theater and record a movie like on VHS, and then that would be the copy that'd get people later on if you wanted to watch Star Wars before it was available on video, and it was
a bunch of people's heads in the way.
Yeah, and the sound quality is something the recording of a recording. Yeah. Oh, the good old days of piracy. Anyway, video piracy.
Internet piracy is glorious. Not that I do not condone.
No.
Certainly don't condone anything illegal. But
you know what? Actually, I don't know. I don't know why internet piracy made me think of this. But before we actually start we were going to go on to segment 1 and Men at the Latin Mass. But before we do, I thought of something, which is we did say during a episode a while back. I think it was the Forbidden episode, that the patron of our program is Santiago
Matamoros.
St. James,
the Moor Slayer.
The Moor Slayer.
Yes.
So he is indeed our patron. So we had highlighted before. So as we always would like, we do offer. This is an apostolate. We do offer it through the intercession of Santiago Matamoros.
Yes.
And I was going to suggest that we consider an additional patron. I came across this recently. Now I'm putting this out to Frankie for the first time, so we'll take it into consideration.
Okay.
Saint Lawrence.
Oh,
martyr.
Very nice.
And the reason why is now I'm not claiming that we're all that funny. People tell us we're. I don't know if we're funny or not. I think if you think you're funny, that's probably a problem. But I do know that this show causes some people to laugh at times, and maybe laugh at times that we don't want them to laugh. But
I know at least a few people are laughing. I know nobody at the network is laughing.
They're not laughing,
so that's good.
Yeah. So and I did actually if you look at the podcasts, platforms, the Spotify and the Apple and all that, they do. We're listed as comedy and Christianity, which
comedy
and Christianity.
How dare they?
But
this isn't funny.
Actually, I think I put that in there. But anyway, okay, I might have checked that box because I didn't want people thinking it was just like, hey, welcome back to Trad Talk Radio. Hey, welcome. And so I learned recently that St. Lawrence Martyr is the patron of comedians.
Really? Oh, because okay.
Yeah. So
go ahead and tell this story.
So no, I mean he was a patron of. Pretty much the story is that when he was persecuted, and I think actually the first part that gives him credit for being a comedian is that when the authorities, because remember the Christian faith was illegal in Rome at the time,
right.
And he's a deacon, and when they showed up, the Roman authorities showed up, and I guess they said, "Where's this treasure that you have here?" He said, "Well, along with the gold and the jewels," and he pointed to all the people who were praying, all the faithful, and he said, these widows are our treasure, and these young children are our treasure. Our treasure is here on earth with all of the faithful who worship the Christ," or something to that effect.
Nice.
And so he kind of was like trolling them, and so they didn't like that. They thought they were being kind of goofed on, which I think got him arrested. And then, of course, when he was being persecuted and they were roasting him at the stake, and the fire was consuming him, he just smiled and said, "Flip me over. This side is done." And they did. And then he torched the rest of the way, and he's a great martyr of the church. And then he's in his name, St. Lawrence Martyr.
Oh, that's
but
amazing.
as he was. So it's the idea of the happy martyr, or the willfully, intentionally going on to your martyrdom. But the fact that he did it cracking a joke,
goofing on pagans.
He was goofing on the pagan, centurions or whatever who were.
Now, it's a good thing he did that before Vatican II, because goofing on pagans is strictly prohibited in the conciliar church.
I think it's in Nostra Aetate, maybe. It's
Lumen Gentium.
One of those. Yeah, one of those
proclamations. Yes.
Yes. Ye shall not goof on the. That might be the only thing anathematized by Vatican II.
Goofing on pagans.
Goofing
was
on
the
pagans.
only thing that was in
Yes, that was. There you go.
There it is. There it is.
Oh my goodness! The pagans and the separated brethren shall not be goofed upon or goofed on.
No, I mean, we talked about this in season 1. If you don't laugh, you'll cry. You have to have a good sense of humor. I mean, just the humor is such a precious gift from God.
It is.
It's I guess partially a way to share in God's perspective of the universe, which is almost like which is like a transcendent perspective. God laughs at his enemies from Mount Sion. And you really can't laugh at things unless you're truly detached from them in a lot of ways.
So, here's the thing. Laughter is in many ways an extension of happiness or joy.
Yeah.
Joy is a gift of the Holy Spirit, or a fruit of the Holy Spirit. I always forget the gifts as a fruit. Yeah. But so that it's a joyful act.
Yeah.
It's very hard to have malice in your heart or anger festering as you're laughing.
Yeah, it would be that kind of like snickery, like gossipy, bitter laughter. You can tell when somebody's laughing as a way to not appear angry.
Yeah, I think it's actually a very effective tool when teaching, or even sometimes sharing maybe uncomfortable truths. You can kind of laugh at a situation.
Yeah,
so.
The funny thing in anatomy and physiology class right now, the thing they teach us is that if you make up acronyms, mnemonics, for like things you're supposed to memorize about the human body, like the more outrageous, off the wall, and humorous the acronyms are, the better you're going to remember them.
Makes sense. So there you go. So humor has a place. I'll tell you what, actually, maybe we'll go ahead and take a break before we tackle into the more serious topic of men in the Latin Mass. We teased you with it, but let's take a break maybe, and then we'll come on back to that one.
Fantastic idea, Brian. Listeners, smoke them if you got them. We'll see you in a little bit. And we're back. The network has not eliminated us yet. Here for a continuation of this most recent episode. I'm running out of stuff to say. Help me, Brian.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, hope you enjoyed the very brief break and our wonderful theme music. So as promised, we first segment here, we would like to talk about men in the Latin Mass. And kind of came up recently for me, because I guess one of the things you notice when you go to Latin Mass is just how many men are there. Married men, of course, but a lot of single guys too. Frankie?
Yeah,
Frankie's single.
I'm one of them.
Yep, Frankie's available. He's on the market. He's available. And but no, men go to church when it's a Latin Mass. And of course, we all know that for a generation, there's been this whole discussion about trying to get men to go to church, and how do you get men back in the pews, and dads not going to church. And
that's the thing, Brian, that hits the issue. Trying. They're trying to get men back.
What do we
church.
need to do? What kind of program do we need to?
Everything. It's like, oh, we have to get more of this. Oh, we got to go do that. It's like, no, don't conform the Mass to the world. Conform the world to the Mass.
And they will, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you offer it, they will come.
Yeah.
And what's it? It is the Mass. And not just like some generic, like, let's interpret what the Mass is. I mean, we don't need to reinvent the Tridentine wheel.
Yeah, the church needs to be advertised, but it does not need to be marketed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't go there and pander to people like Monsieur Leboeuf just said. He felt like it was selling him a car when he went to the Osordo Mass. It's like, you don't need to like sell people on it. You just got to tell them about it and explain it and have it be there in its original form and what's supposed to be, and people flock to it.
Yeah,
it conquered multiple continents. People would just became Christian all over the world. And then 1962 comes along when it's time to start pandering and marketing to people, and then everybody fled.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. They said we weren't doing enough of this, we're not doing enough of that, and they try to cater to a niche or niche. They try to cater to a very narrow little,
really weird,
a little tiny moment in time, generation in time. And it as we said in our special episode on Vatican II, celebrating 60 years of the council.
Happy birthday!
As we noted on that one, the shelf life was short lived. When you cater to a moment in time, that moment in time is fleeting. Yeah, and then you're already expired. And the milk is already soured. Take it off the shelf, pour it down the drain. Yeah. But the Latin Mass, being eternal, really does appeal to men. And so this kind of comes up for me. This is not a recent paper, but I was kind of bebopping around on the internet. And
oh, no.
I know. It gets
again, Brian, again.
I can't help myself. So, Una Voce. Una Voce. That's
Portuguese for two voices, right?
Well, I think una means one.
Oh, okay.
One voice, as in the Latin language.
Oh, good.
So the Federatio Internationalis Una Voce, International Union of Una Voce, Federation of Una Voce, which is just the Latin Mass around the world. There's different chapters of Una Voce, and for a long time, the international community actually was led by Michael Davies years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm going to say about 95% sure it was Michael Davies for a long time. Recent years, I know it was chaired by Dr. Joseph Shaw of the Latin Mass Society of England and Wales.
Ooh.
And they put out a series of position papers. Number 26 came out in July of 2015. This isn't that new. It's 7 years old. But people put out these little position papers, and all they end up being over time are just little PDFs on the internet that people don't actually read or discuss. Well, this one was called The Extraordinary Form and Men. And, And it's interesting because the first thing it really hits you with is the idea of participation by men, and it brings up a good. So I love statistics, and it brings up a good statistic from 1974. So I don't know what the survey. I'm sure I can go down and find out where these. I think it's the Gallup. I think Gallup poll, maybe Gallup did this survey, but in 1974, 46% of men and 45% of women, so actually a little bit higher for men, surveyed regarded themselves as quote-unquote strong Catholics. So almost half the men, 46%, almost half said they thought of themselves as strong Catholics. In 2012, that number was down to 24% for men and 30% for women. So from 45 down to 24 who consider themselves strong Catholics. So 3 out of 4 Catholics polled said they weren't strong Catholics.
Wow.
I mean, I guess you could say, well, maybe they were raising a bar. Maybe they're so much better than it used to be that they just have higher standards for themselves and they don't cut themselves any slack, and therefore, but I don't think so. I know. Glass half full.
No comment.
In 2005. So this would be right before, a couple of years before Summorum Pontificum. So at this point now, what you really have are society chapels and indult masses. Now, I don't think guys from the society chapel are being interviewed, or they could be part of the survey, who knows, but taken at large, this is probably mostly diocesan Catholics.
Yeah.
99.9% were going to Novus Ordo masses.
Muck up your survey with any schismatic heretics that don't believe in the Pope, like the SSPX.
Yeah, that's a joke.
That's a joke.
That's a joke.
That's a joke.
But
that's a joke.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they would say, right?
Yeah,
they would say that.
The network.
In 2005, a survey reported that only 37% of regular worshipers at masses in the United States were men.
Wow. That's a pretty alarming statistic, to be
sure. This is a great one. Now, this is the 1985 study. So this is going back. This is probably a little too far. 1985 doesn't help much, although it may still show you kind of where things are at by anecdotally. You can think about your own experiences. A study published in 1985 showed that between 70 and 90% of parish activities, faith formation, Bible study groups, etc., were led by women.
Yeah, that's something I'd noticed independently. Going to indult mass is just like, whoa, this is weird. Like, women are in charge of everything. And this is something I wasn't allowed to say on AM radio or on the network, but what's the driving force behind that? If you think about it, we know that feminism was invented as a ploy by factory owners to double the size of the workforce. And therefore, once you have a doubled workforce size, what do you do to the wages? You can cut them in half.
Yeah. Yeah.
So looking at the way parish life is run as an extension through a process like feminism, you basically notice a few things. Like all these women that are running these organizations and doing this work within the parish, they're not the primary breadwinner for their family. It's like some really old married lady, or it's some like really young girl with purple hair that has a theology degree from University of Franciscan of Stupidville, something like that. It's so you can do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to pay her a living wage.
Yeah.
You can pay her like $32,000 a year to be the youth ministress at some parish because, she just doesn't need that much money. She doesn't have a family to support. That's why none of these men are like stepping up to these positions, because they don't pay a living wage.
Yeah.
Like if they paid a living wage, then you would have some admirable family man, like somebody like you, would be in charge of some of these things. But instead, it's old.
So the interesting thing is that you don't actually have to make a lot of things that these ministries do don't have to be paid positions, and that's part of the problem as well, which is the big difference I noticed between a diocesan setting, and this really is irregardless of whether we're talking about a Latin Mass setting or a Novus Ordo, but a diocesan setting versus a Society of St. Pius X Chapel is the number of men who are involved.
Yeah.
So the men in the pew number, when we talk, and I'm about to touch upon that, but when we talk about the increase in the number of men in the pew versus other settings, it carries over to volunteerism as well.
Yeah.
So you don't need to have a paid permanent position on certain things if you have just men stepping up.
Yeah, because everything's so small. Typically, it's all volunteer work. Apparently, that's how a lot of the cathedrals were built. Men would make in medieval Europe, men would make enough money working for 3 or 4 months to support themselves for the entire year. They would spend the remaining like 7-8 months, building cathedrals for free.
Wow. Nice. Well, I bet you anything there were probably some indulgences gifted, maybe. I'm being sincere. If you have a cathedral that is still standing in current year, that was built 1,000 years ago, yes, that bishop should have said, this is an incredible work for the church. And
that's meritorious penitential work.
Yes,
and like if you can get a plenary indulgence for going to the Stations of the Cross, which takes like 25 minutes, then you should definitely get or you definitely could get an indulgence from building a cathedral.
And 25 years to build a cathedral
on your own time.
Yeah, I would think that definitely the bishop has the authority to offer that.
Yeah, I don't think that's Martin Luther abusive indulgences at all.
Yeah, no, but I'm sure that some people would frown upon it, but that's just because they're wrong.
Yeah, they're wrong. They're wrong.
Yeah. So going kind of back over this, there have been other studies that basically showed how important it is for men to kind of lead the family to church.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to go over those numbers, but it's significant when the mother is taking the children to church. It's better than not going at all, but the children still statistically fall away, particularly sons.
Yeah.
But when it's father leading kids to church, and I mean father and mother, statistically, those kids are much more likely to stay in the faith, to grow up in the faith, to remain in the faith. And that's actually in Protestant services too. That's in Protestant churches as well.
Yeah.
It's just a truth.
You just got to acknowledge the father as a spiritual leader for his family. And
that's right.
If he's not doing that, then everything kind of unravels and falls apart.
Yeah. So the International Federation, Una Voce, found, this is 2015, that about 37% of Novus Ordo congregations were male.
Oh.
And again, and I wonder if, let me see if I can see who they were quoting here. I don't see who the reference, it looks like they use Gallup quite a bit, some other surveys, Notre Dame. So I don't know all where they get these from, but we can kind of link to it again on our Facebook page, Trad Talk Radio. But 37% of Novus Ordo congregations were male. At the extraordinary form, a figure of about 55% appears to be typical, and as high as 75% in some cases, they're saying. So we can speak to it anecdotally, both at a diocesan Latin Mass, and then as well as a society chapel, but 55% of the folks at the Mass, male.
Yeah.
It is completely the opposite of what you see in that Novus Ordo setting.
Yeah, it is kind of feminized.
Well,
the
no, you're right. Yes.
Yeah, not just, I mean, and not that being feminine is wrong.
No.
Or anything objectively. It's just like the men are feminized over there too. Come on, guys, we all see it. You see these spindly, low testosterone nerds just like looking like they're gonna blow away at the next sudden breeze, just pasty, moon faced, sitting around like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's like, you just see it. It's obvious.
Well, to that point, Cardinal Heenan, Heenan, Cardinal Heenan of Wales, at the time of the rollout of the Novus Ordo, he was the one who had been corresponding back and forth with Evelyn Waugh before he passed away.
Yeah.
And I think he was the one that when he saw the Novus Ordo tested, when the bishops were able to see and the cardinals were able to see this kind of, I think, this practice run, he's the one that I think wrote to Paul VI and said, you're going to have a church full of women and children.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah.
Wow.
I should go find the quote. He said that you're going to have a church full, this is a mass for women and children. Men will not hang around for this mass. And I don't know exactly what they saw in that, but I got to think it was probably better than what we ended up getting in a lot of places.
I read a great book. It's called The Church Impotent. And I think it's written by a Protestant, but it examines Eastern churches, the Catholic Church, as well as Protestant churches. And the problem he's trying to solve is why have men quit going to church? And I think what he came up with is that it was changes in the liturgy. Because something that's less verbal, like a Latin Mass, at least for the laity, like you don't have to say anything. All you have to really do is pray and meditate with the priest as he's going through the sacrifice of the Mass. In contrast, we have the Novus Ordo Mass, which you have to talk and like say a bunch of things, and you have to look at people and like make eye contact. You have to shake hands and say "Peace be with you" and things like that. I don't know if I think they omitted that, but
actually, no, I think you still have that in places.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, the whole thing is a lot more verbal and therefore more appealing to women who have more developed verbal faculties than men. And there's something about the like dread of silent contemplation that men really like understanding that something is beyond words and transcendent.
Yeah.
And really, it doesn't require a whole lot of talking to grasp. That draws them to it and attracts them to it.
So psychologically, sociologically, whatever, it's kind of understanding how men are wired.
Spiritually as well.
Well, yeah, and I remember hearing a story. I think it was about, might have been Franklin Roosevelt's president. I can't remember which Roosevelt. I think it was Franklin Roosevelt. When his dad
was he a big buff guy that punched people in the face, or was he in a wheelchair? Which one? I've got it narrowed down to two.
Yeah, was it Teddy or Frank? All right. Well, I think it was Franklin Roosevelt,
okay.
pre-wheelchair, pre-polio.
Gotcha. Okay.
But when he was a kid growing up, his dad would get home, and they're all filthy rich. But his dad would get home, and it was a matter of the paper was given to him, and he sat like in a chair, like smoking and reading the paper, and the kids knew. Don't bother Dad until he's finished his newspaper.
Yeah,
like he kind of whatever office he went to. I don't know what his dad's name, what his dad did for a living. Again, they were all rather well off. But the point is, whenever he got back from the office or whatever he did, the factory that he owned or whatever, he parked it on a chair.
Yeah,
read the paper, and the kids knew to leave Dad alone until he was done.
I've actually heard a lot about that through relationship psychology and stuff. Like men after work need decompression time where they're left alone for like a half hour or something like that. Otherwise, they're going to get cranky. they're going to have a hard time transitioning from work mind to home mind.
Yeah,
and
that's true. It's a legitimate thing. And actually, it's interesting because you mentioned the thing about the book you read, The Church Impotent. And you said it might be a Protestant perspective, if you will, the way it was written. You said a Protestant minister that wrote it.
Well, it's like really empirical. There's a lot of research and surveying and things like that, and he just kind of goes through the the observable factors for men leaving the church.
Yeah. So it's interesting because some of the points you mentioned kind of come into play here in paragraph 9 of this position paper by the Una Voce group. It says the sacral formality and lack of spontaneity of the, and they call it the extraordinary form. I'm going to replace it with Latin Mass, but the sacral,
true Mass,
the sacral formality that triggers people. But
that's why I say it. That's exactly why I say it.
I like the word authentic because for some reason it seems less abrasive than true, but authenticity. It's authentic.
I wish I could find a word more abrasive than true, but I haven't. So
we'll keep working on it. You got homework now.
Yeah.
Hey, if you have a word more abrasive than true, feel free to go to TradTalkRadio at
gmail.com.
A word more abrasive than true, Mass. But all right, so paragraph 9. The sacral formality and lack of spontaneity of the traditional Latin Mass, its orientation into the transcendent, and its expression of profound truths without demanding an openly expressed verbal or emotional response from the congregation are features which do not make demands upon men with which they are uncomfortable. So it literally says what you said, which is men can kneel and pray. It doesn't demand them to be verbal. It doesn't require an emotionalism out of them.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we talk about trad women and my wife is the same way. My wife can't stand it when they do, like when, like in a Novus Ordo setting, when there's like this kind of like schmaltzy kind of just. She calls it the like that when they get that Protestant praise and worship music and they try to pass it off as being acceptable to Catholic Mass.
Oh yeah.
I mean, not just Live Teen. They work those in sometimes in other masses.
That music isn't acceptable for the bathtub. Like it's just bad.
My wife calls
Hank
it
Hill. You're not making Christianity better. You're just making rock and roll worse.
We're actually quoting Hank Hill now. We're quoting cartoon dudes now on the show. So she's
the only anime trad Catholics are allowed to watch. By the way, is Hank Hill.
King of the Hill, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So she said that it's the Jesus as my boyfriend music. Yeah. So think about now. I don't think I think she heard that from somebody else, but I don't care. She calls it that. So there you go. Yes. So when they're playing songs where it's so lame that it really sounds like the proddy girl is just doing the whole like my love for Jesus. It's like Jesus is my boyfriend. So
Jesus wants for you to express your love for him with good music.
Yes. Oh.
Like, some kind of beautiful polyphony, perhaps.
I had. Hey, do I got a quote for you
Palestrina
on that?
Or something?
I got a quote for you on that, actually. I got another quote for you. But before we get to that quote, guess what? This position paper is so solid from Una Voce. They actually do have the Cardinal Heenan quote when he talked about the Mass, the changes to the Mass. So this is actually from the early version of the Novus Ordo that he saw in 1967. This is Cardinal Heenan. John Cardinal Heenan of England. At home, this is a quote. At home, it is not only women and children, but also fathers of families and young men who come regularly to Mass. So for home, he means England, and Wales. If we were to offer them the kind of ceremony that we saw yesterday in the Sistine Chapel, a demonstration of the normative Mass, Bonini's Mass, we would soon be left with a congregation mostly of women and children.
Huh.
Guess what happened? They rolled it out, and they ended up with a congregation of only women and children.
Old women.
And children. And
not even that many children.
Not even that many children.
He's wrong.
Which is why the seminaries dried up and the schools all stopped. And all that kind of stuff.
Mostly old women.
Yeah. So that's kind of a bit of where it's coming from. Men have that real big. Two things that men look for, I think. I think the vertical worship of the Mass, the me and God versus the horizontal of the community. Mass is happening on the altar. We talked about that. It's an anathema of Trent declared that if you think that the Mass has to basically have a bunch of people involved with it for it to be valid, and I'm paraphrasing that. Yeah. No, it's not. The priest offering that sacrifice by himself is still full of grace. It's still a valid sacrifice. It still has merit.
Yeah.
Our presence there doesn't. It allows us to participate in that and to further glorify God. But that beauty of that Holy Mass being offered on the altar is there whether we're there or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
But men recognize that vertical element. The horizontal element is just really intrusive at times.
And we're not saying that women don't recognize these things. It's just, but this is kind of backed up by these writers and these people, these observers of church like populations. I mean, it seems like men are slightly more inclined, or maybe greatly more inclined to these kind of things than women are.
Yeah,
but,
I think trad women would say that doesn't fit them, but that's why they're at the Latin Mass, because it's lost on them too. The nonsense that's passed off as this horizontal worship, this community celebrating itself, and how many felt banners it can roll out, and how much kind of like bad music. The trad women don't want that either. That's why they're at the Latin Mass.
Yeah, it's nonsense whether you're a man or a woman. The Novus Ordo sect stuff. It's totally ridiculous. It's just it's more ridiculous to men than it is to women.
Yeah,
is what I would say.
We'll be back after a brief commercial break. We're back with more books. Season 2 of Trad Talk Radio.
More books.
More books.
More books. But are they trad enough for the listeners?
I don't know.
We're
We'll
gonna
see.
Find, yeah,
We're
again,
find
tradtalkradio@gmail.com.
Might get rocks thrown at me at St. Anthony's next time if I suggest some untrad books.
Well, I happen to see what Frank has in his hand, so I can vouch for the tradness. Is that a word? Tradness of his book.
You know what, Brian? Your vouching is very valuable, and I respect it. But we have someone else vouching for this book.
Who would that be?
Somebody very important. Well, I'll just read the vouching first, and I'll tell you who vouched.
All right.
I warmly recommend this book to you, as I value it very highly, and have myself made it my bedside book. Pope St. Pius X.
Oh, wait. He had it on his nightstand next to him when he was in bed?
Yes, this was a book that he read perpetually because he found so much value in it. This book is called The Soul of the Apostolate by Jean-Baptiste Chautard. Any French listeners, you're welcome to strike me. Just punch my teeth right out of my mouth for my mangling of your beautiful language.
You don't fluently. You speak Portuguese, but not French. Is that correct?
Yeah, neither.
No, okay.
So let me tell you about this book, Brian.
Yes.
I mention it basically everywhere I go. I'm sure I've mentioned it in season 1 before.
Yes, we've talked about it, but briefly.
No,
Very briefly.
Yeah, we have. The book is about forming an apostolate. Whenever you hear the word ministry, like young adult ministry, it's basically the Novus Ordo sect bastardization form of apostolate. Anytime you hear the word ministry, run. Anytime you hear the term apostolate, run towards.
Yes.
Run towards it.
Yeah.
And this book teaches you how to set up apostolates. It's intended primarily for priests. But it also has use for laymen that are starting apostolates. And you said earlier, we kind of see this radio show as an apostolate.
Sure.
So we do our best with that. We fail pretty miserably, but
well, and I think actually it's not even a matter that we choose to be or to say it's an apostolate. I think if you're doing anything you're doing should be right for the glory of God, for the church, even when you're making a lot of jokes and goofing
and
on.
Certainly a radio show about the faith.
Yeah,
certainly.
Yeah, so it falls under the apostolate banner.
Yeah, so keep this what am I reading, what are you reading section going. I'm just going to read a few things, a few passages. This book is all like dog-eared, underlined, like Post-it notes sticking out of it. Good. Yeah.
Highlight away.
All right. Quote, numbers will be no use to you unless everyone is hand-picked. Let the growth of your club depend most of all on the influence exercised by the nucleus of apostles, the center of which will be Jesus and Mary, with you as their instrument. Don't worry.
Nice.
You will soon find out that noise does not do much good, and that what is good doesn't make much noise.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
Mea culpa.
I feel kind of incriminated because we make a lot of noise.
I love these books because I feel so targeted by them. It's just like I feel
Yes.
like the saints are lining up to roast me. And it's great. That's what you actually need.
Yes.
The very best books, just make you feel targeted, make you think, and make you make changes about yourself.
Yep.
I'd like to read a few more brief passages.
There you go.
Quote, can you quote any fact, just one fact, to show that during the time the church needed to think up amusements to turn aside the souls she was going to conquer from the filth of pagan shows? This is basically, out of context, this whole chapter is about the foolishness of trying to just outcompete things like movies or football games or rock bands or anything like that from the Catholic perspective. Like, your Catholic apostolate is not about those things. Like, you can have those things and it's okay. It even says in here, football, beyond just like a silly distraction to have fun, is from hell. It's no good. It's like extremely critical of professional sports, collegiate sports, and things like that.
Interesting.
It should just be a fun game to blow off steam. It shouldn't be this thing that you like compete in and all that stuff. I'm sure some people are going to be very unhappy to hear that, but
sure, it probably is. Well, then that actually is. I mean, that's probably more controversial than almost anything we've said in this day and age. But you know, I know people with that kind of that. If you know that expression, travel ball, and what happens is like their life is driving their kid around to practices and games like 24/7, and there's like no off season. It used to be at least then like a high school when you're lettering for a sport.
It's so sad, Brian. I'm going to college right now, and the college I'm going to is 60% athletes. It's insane, and you know, basically these coaches. I'm in the nursing major, and they're telling these students that are on the volleyball team or the tennis team or whatever team that they can't go to nursing school. That they should go get a psychology degree and then go to nursing school after they have a bachelor's in psychology. It's going to take them like 6 years to become a registered nurse that way. You know, but they don't care, these coaches. They're just
because they want them to not have the challenging academic life beforehand, or what is their...
Well, they just know that nursing it's a demanding major.
Yeah.
Especially the first year, you're up against a lot of hard classes and you have to rethink how you study.
Hey, you got to focus on the sports.
Yeah, that's true. You gotta go play volleyball. It's not even D1. It's just a bunch. It's like they. It's like not even like they. Yeah, I'm sorry. My college is gonna come kill me. There we go. All is forgiven. I hope. They're not gonna expel me for speaking out against them. Well, I haven't named the college yet.
That's
though.
true. You have not. Should I do that? No. I'm kidding.
Yeah, that would be.
I'll call you out.
That would be it.
But you know that quote you just read from the book from Soul of the Apostolate also explains maybe why it's so cringy. And I don't think they had the word cringe back in 1905.
They were more elegant than that.
Yeah, but it's why it's so cringy whenever you see Catholicism or a parish trying to like take some secular you know, or
is
Protestant.
That pandering garbage again with the guitars and the drums and the laser light show and stuff during the Mass. It's like you're basically trying to beat the pagans at their own game.
Yeah.
And that's not what the Mass is for. It's supposed to be something that's separate and different. If you want to go play drums and guitar with your friends, outside of the Mass, go.
Get your garage lined up. You know, get your instruments ready. Get some
record some music for our opening.
Yeah. Feel free to donate your rock song.
Yeah, we want something heavier.
That's right. Well, that's pretty good. Those are some good quotes, and obviously you can never go wrong reading Dom Chautard.
Yeah, I read that book perpetually. I think that every listener here should read that book perpetually, especially men that are in charge of Catholic apostolates or even just groups at business.
Yeah.
It explains the importance of spiritual life and prayer as the bedrock foundation for any undertaking that you do.
Well, that's what's interesting, too. If you read anything from before 1960, whenever it's talking about an apostolate or the exterior action of the Catholic or the Christian, it always starts with the interior disposition.
Yeah.
So it always talks about the need for the for mental prayer for the interior life, and then all of a sudden, as the church really went overboard on the get actively involved, participate actively, both in ministries. There's that word they always use.
Yeah.
Or at the Mass in some type of liturgical role that should be for the priest. It almost is like the church stopped talking about the interior life. All of a sudden, mental prayer and books that encourage it, like Soul of the Apostolate, and that not just encouraged it, I mean, talked about the necessity of it. No, they just fell out of favor.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And I mean, I'm looking for the passage in the book, but I won't waste anybody's time. It calls it like diabolical activity. Is any activity in which is not supported by a prayer life, interior life. Basically says that it's activity for its own sake, and that even good works have this kind of like savory, tasty flavor to them that human beings can't stay away from.
Oh, well, I mean, it's pride. Think about that. I mean, even a modest little meager show with modest listenership could be a source of pride,
Oh yeah.
and dangerous. Anything where you start thinking that that you're so important, or you forget that it's it's Christ focused. It's to elevate the church and not yourself.
Yeah. You know what Maximilian Kolbe said? He said a good intention to work is like putting a 1 in front of a bunch of zeros. If you conduct your work with no good intentions or with prideful or self-serving intentions, it means nothing. But as soon as you devote the work to our Lord or to Our Lady, it becomes a 1 in front of many zeros.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, that's good. So instead of a bunch of zeros, it has
Yeah. So what are you reading, Brian?
So it's interesting because I did notice that the publisher of your book seems to be the same publisher of the books that I'm reading right now as well. So
Wait! Don't tell me.
Look,
it's Tan books.
I'm going to hold this up for Frank to see the back of the books I'm holding.
Yes, another Tan classic.
So I do know from the interweb and from my kind of liturgy guy persona, I guess, that a lot of folks read Tan, and they do a great job with a lot
with good reason.
With good reason. And so I do have a couple different Tan books, and these are a few books actually that they, in full disclosure, they kind of sent over my way just to promote through some other apostolates. But they're actually great works. They have a series of books. I think they call like their Resurrection series.
Oh, that's cool.
But not resurrection in the sense of our Lord's resurrection, but in the sense of classics that are written by saints or other holy people that maybe kind of have never been translated into English or had not been translated in English for like maybe centuries, and they, kind of have rediscovered them to share.
I hear that the Catechism of Pius X hasn't been translated from Italian yet.
This I do not know.
Or maybe there's like an amateur English translation.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I'm not sure about that would be one to do. I do know for a fact that they are coming out with, and I don't have that one here with me, but they are coming out with a new annotated version of Father Francis Sparago's the Catechism Explained.
Oh, nice. The Sparago Trent
Catechism. Yes, I think it's February of 23 is when they're going to be publishing that. I do have their they used to publish it, and I have their hardback edition from years ago.
Yeah, Mom, I know you're listening. Mom. Yeah. Christmas present ideas.
Anybody who homeschools or teaches faith formation, you should have the Sparago Catechism. It's called the Catechism Explained. It's actually online, by the way. Both at Sensus Fidelium and also at the Bellarmine Project. They do have like online versions of the Catechism Explained by Sparago, Father Sparago, a good Jesuit, I believe. But the hardback edition, a new edition will be coming out in print, because right now I think the hardback, the one I have, is out of print beginning next year. So that's just kind of a plug for anybody teaching faith formation or who wants to learn. That's a readable catechism, by the way. It is not legalistic. It's not
egg-headed.
No, it's incredibly readable. So I would highly recommend that. Now, so what I'm reading is I got 2 different books from Tan, but one of them, this Resurrection series, it's called A Tale of Death and Glory: The Acts of Saint Sebastian and His Companions by Saint Ambrose of Milan.
Oh, wow. You know what I say. If the first name of the author is not Saint, I don't read it, but a book by a saint about another saint. I think that's about as good as you can get.
Yeah, and St. Ambrose, right? So I think St. Ambrose is the guy who converted St. Augustine, I believe. Augustine, I think, came from Ambrose.
Was he St. Augustine's bishop? Yeah,
I thought he was. I think he was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was.
Wow.
So that's one thing that I read. So this one is just it's kind of a St. Ambrose, I think, speaking for St. Sebastian. I have no idea about the scholarship in the sense of like what is
don't know, don't care.
In the olden days,
I believe it.
It's either the words of St. Sebastian or the words of St. Ambrose. Either way, it qualifies.
Yep.
What's interesting about it is it reminds me of our Forbidden episode where we talk about one of the topics that I think really kind of riles people, rubs people the wrong way,
rankles
people, is talking about hell.
Yeah, and also the staggeringly high percentage of people that go to hell. A lot.
Yes, and so that's a new thing. The church did not shy away from those tough conversations in the old days. So it reminded me, because I'm reading
a St. John Vianney sermon.
Read anything from before 1900, 1960, and you'll find that out. So this book, and I don't know when he wrote them, but St. Ambrose would have been like 3rd or 4th century.
Yep.
End of chapter 5, he's talking to, he has 2 folks that are kind of like embracing martyrdom. These 2 friends of his, and they've been arrested by the authorities, and they're going to face martyrdom. their parents and their wives are trying to like talk them out of this. I guess they want them to repudiate Christ and their faith. And Saint Sebastian is telling them, no, that you can't do that. Like, this is the mantle you've been given. And now he's talking about like what awaits the person, right? This is what happens if you don't. He's already described heaven, by the way. He's already given some ideas of what heaven will be. So you get that first. But now he's on to this. He says, this one quote I'm going to read. And the person who for some reason chooses not to desire the wonderful eternal life which is to come will not only lose that splendid reward, but what is worse, shall find themselves made the captive of everlasting death. In that condition of everlasting death, there will burn fierce fires which are never extinguished. There will be tribulations which never cease, and punishments which never reach an end. The infernal realm which those condemned to this perpetual torment inhabit is populated by foul demons and fallen angels, whose limbs are like the heads of dragons, whose eyes send forth a malignant and caustic glare like burning arrows, whose teeth are like the tusks of rabid elephants. These denizens of hell shall constantly inflict a pain upon the damned, stinging them like the tails of scorpions. Their voices will be like the roar of ferocious lions, and their hideous visages will strike terror, pain, and death-like despair into the hearts of all who behold them.
Wow. Pretty bone-chilling.
Yeah. So, A Tale of Death and Glory, St. Ambrose. It just strikes you because it's very consistent with what the fathers and what the saints preached on in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, unfortunately, with human nature, is you sometimes need to know how bad it can be. A fear of the Lord is a healthy thing.
Yeah.
And we want
that's why God sustains hell, so that saints shine brighter. I mean, this was actually talked about by the church fathers a lot. God, sustains hell to punish the wicked, but he also does it so that there's more glory and more piety and more love for God from the saints.
Yeah.
Like if there was no hell, there would be a lot less love for God.
That makes sense, actually. Yeah. So I think actually we might want to get on to a quick movie review.
Why, are you sick of listening to me talk?
No.
Did I say something wrong?
No, I don't know.
Do I need to put another coin in the jar?
No, nothing bad happened. I just think that.
Oh man.
I just think that there's sometimes a lack of programming for Catholics, for Catholic families. And we had recently rewatched something. This is by no means a new movie, and I would assume a lot of our listeners have watched it already. But if you haven't watched it recently, it's something that I think would be considered very Catholic friendly. And just so happens
there's a Catholic friendly movie out there? That's interesting.
There have been a few.
Really?
This particular one happens to be, as I know, because I know Frankie, this happens to be your favorite movie of all time.
Yeah.
And I would call it one of my top 3, which is a very exclusive list. So we watched recently The Fellowship of the Ring by Peter Jackson.
Yes.
I don't think we have the rights to that music. You may want to.
Oh no, I'm gonna get the show canceled.
I think we have to pay for that. No, that's okay. I mean, it was barely recognizable.
The network is gonna drone strike our gymnasium now because of me.
That was not the theme from The Fellowship. I don't know what that was. Right.
There's a music that plays when Aragorn does his thing.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah.
I was trying to get us off the hook there, but you.
Oh, sorry, I ruined it again.
Twice. You got it wrong. Go ahead, ding yourself.
I'm gonna put a coin in the jar for getting the show canceled.
That's right.
Sorry, everybody.
So the Fellowship. Obviously, Tolkien was Catholic.
Yes.
In fact, the rumor, the story, which I hope and pray is not apocryphal, was that even after the Mass changed and went to English and was vernacular and was no longer in Latin, and they would say, "The Lord be with you," he would shout,
"Et cum spiritu tuo,"
as everybody else was saying, "And with your spirit," or "and also with you." And I guess he would be blurting out his Latin responses.
Oh, thank God! Thank God for J.R. Tolkien.
Very Aragorn-like right there.
Yes,
no fear.
Love him.
Yeah.
Love him.
So anyway, the movie version. So I don't know if every Tolkien fan likes the movie versions. And I think both in the case of Frankie and I, we both talked about this, and we read the books after we saw the movies.
Yeah, that's true. Well. Yeah, I saw the movie first. So I remember the way I saw it. I was 13, and my friend Trevor, the movie had just came out, Fellowship, and he said, hey, we need to go see the Lord of the Rings movie. It's awesome. And at that point, I knew that he was into D&D and stuff like that, and I was like, man, I don't do all that wizard dragon stuff. Like, that's lame. That's stupid. Like,
yeah. Not a fantasy connoisseur.
Let's not say we did. And I went in the theater like shuffling my feet. And I'm like, oh, whatever, get this over with. And then 3 rings for the Dwarf Lords. And I'm just like that little introductory sequence.
Oh my
with,
goodness.
Sauron just.
And I think it's Galadriel, Kate Blanchard.
Yeah,
that's doing
she's
the narration.
narrating.
Yeah,
but who I think it was Elendil and what's the name of his son again? Isildur. Yeah,
Isildur.
they're out there
And Elrond
marching to defeat Sauron's army on the slopes of Mount Doom. And from that point, I'm just like on the edge of my seat, hooked.
Yeah. Yes.
Went to see all the other movies, then later read the books.
Yeah.
That was quite a digression, Brian. I'm sorry.
No.
Saying.
No. So my point being that, so I know there may be some people that aren't as fond of the movies because they read the books first and they had a whole different vibe. Because the books aren't action movies; the movies are action movies.
Yeah.
And Peter Jackson made horror films. He made kind of some action films. He came with a certain genre background.
He made a bunch of really weird, like body horror, claymation type stuff.
Yeah,
it's just you watch Lord of the Rings and you're like, where did this come from?
Yeah, he didn't. I don't think his earlier career in any way gave you confidence that this movie was going to be this trilogy was going to be made by him effectively.
He was kind of like a weird cross between Benicio del Toro and Jim Henson.
Just like with David Lynch maybe thrown.
Just nightmare Jim Henson.
yeah, and yet he gave us Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
and Frank and I both talked, and I don't know if this is the popular opinion, but we both agree that Fellowship of the Ring is absolutely the best of the trilogy.
I think it's the best executed one because the pacing is 100% perfect.
Perfect.
Everything. It's just like you're on the edge of your seat the entire movie. The moments where you take some time off from the stress are perfectly timed.
Yes, you are invested in the characters. It introduces the characters. It introduces their cultures, their motivations. You get all this hint. And when you're supposed to laugh.
Oh yeah, I'm totally ironic at movies. I laugh at the wrong times. I'm just like, I don't think that joke's funny. Whatever. I'm sitting there rolling my eyes half the time. But in Lord of the Rings, every time I was supposed to laugh, I laughed. Every time I was supposed to cry, I cried.
Yes,
it was bizarre. It was a very strange experience for me.
I think there's probably at least 2 or 3 times where during that movie where if I cannot talk, so I don't really cry at movies. But what happens is that if somebody were to ask me a question, I'd have to go. I wouldn't be able to say anything. You know what I mean? So I get real quiet. But there's a couple times, and I'm not sure if are there spoiler alerts in a movie in a book that's that old. But when certain major characters die. Or appear to die. There's a couple times in that movie where it's
the guy who appeared to die. I was very sad. But then the guy who actually died
towards the end.
Ooh,
yeah, involves some arrows.
Man.
That scene.
Can't do it, Brian. Can't do it.
Yeah, that will make a grown man cry. And so you end up with this great story. And from a Catholic perspective, in addition to being a Catholic author, it is just good is definitely good. Evil is really evil.
Evil's ugly.
Evil's ugly.
It's disgusting to look at. That's my favorite part of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It's like anytime someone is evil, you can smell it. You can see it. Like their life just they become slimy, like just literally encrusted in slime.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about it.
Yeah. The symbolism is not subtle. I mean, there's not gray. We're dealing with very much black and white. This is very much good and evil. And the other thing about it is the symbolism, of course. And there are many Catholic courses. I think actually 10 books. We just talked about them a minute ago, but I think they actually have some courses online for their their homeschooling. And I think Dr. Joseph Pierce, who's kind of an expert on The Hobbit and Tolkien.
Oh, right. He's written many books about J.R. Tolkien.
Yes. And I think, the symbolism of the ring as sin, maybe it's original sin or it's sin itself. So every time the ring is handled, you see this, it's temptation. So man has that concupiscence, that the desire to sin or that inclination to sin, I guess. And the ring is like this temptation, but it's also like this epitome of evil. And so it's the ring bearer. The ring bearer is struggling with this oppressive thing that's weighing on them. And in a sense, in a very Christ-like manner, the ring bearer becomes like this cross bearer. This is a cross that they have to bear, and yet we can see this grace that's always kind of flowing through the world with the fellowship forming. That whole scene where the fellowship forms is like what's good about man. And of course, man could be these demi-humans as well, like dwarves and elves and all that. But it's this idea that people do rise to the occasion, that we do have it in us to take on impossible challenges and martyrdom, right? It's great themes. It's very thematic.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I never get sick of watching those movies. I watch all 3 of them in a row.
Yeah.
You know, I wake up at 7, so I'm done by midnight.
You mean literally in a row?
Yeah, in a row.
We watched them 3 Saturdays in a row. You meant 3 movies in a row on the same day,
back to back.
Oh man! All right, you raised the bar right there. I've not done that as of yet. I guess
give it a try sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then the other thing too is to wrap up. I think is that it's very family friendly. They're intense. The orcs. The monsters.
I remember being scared as a 13-year-old watching the movie. Not like really scared, but definitely like spooked out.
Yeah, there's a few parts for sure.
It's very effectively done.
Yeah.
You're scared when you're supposed to be scared, but there's nothing gross or
objectionable. It's not what's the word, excessive or whatever. There's definitely nothing objectionable in it.
There's nothing like that would you'd be uncomfortable watching with your family in the room. Like I sit with my mom and I watch Lord of the Rings. The last time me and my mom went to a movie theater to see something, there was just all sorts of objectionable filth in the previews. Yeah. And I'm like, here I was suckered into sitting here and watching filth and impurity on a TV screen with my mom.
Yeah.
I felt like the biggest clown, and I was.
And it's the preview. The actual,
and that was the previews.
The previews. Yeah,
approved for all audiences.
Yeah, no, the coming attractions and the commercials. You used to be able to go to the movies without commercials, but now the coming attractions and the commercials are so deeply
utterly
offensive.
Disgusting filth.
Yeah, that you don't even want. And this is if you, like, I went to see some movie that's like 40 years old that was G-rated. I think it was the Star Trek movie from like 1979.
Brother.
And the commercials were like R-rated in my opinion.
All sorts of trash.
Yeah. So anyway, I think the one thing for parents is that obviously your own children and what they can handle from a standpoint of theatrical like violence of guys with swords killing orcs with swords.
Yeah.
Or whatever. But there really isn't anything that's objectionable about it. Just know what age your child's maturity level and what they're comfortable with. Don't hit them with too much of this, very fantasy violence, if you will. If
there's not a scrap of bad language.
No.
Nothing
from a sexual way, nothing from a profanity way, nothing. It's just there's some violence, but I mean, again, it's also just good guys killing orcs, and goblins or whatever. So, great movie, highly recommended. Hopefully, most of you already seen it, but if it's been a while, watch it again.
Yeah,
and, really appreciate it. And I tell you what, it came out I think in 2000 or 2001. I saw it in the show when it came out at the time. I wasn't Catholic yet when I saw the movie the first time.
Oh.
And I bet you there's a lot of people who haven't seen it in a long time. And either they weren't Catholic or maybe they weren't where they're at in their faith now back then. Watch it again.
Well, maybe when Amazon decides to ditch the Tolkien estate, we can get a sponsorship from whoever the last surviving Tolkien is. We're ever solicitous for your approval.
We're not directing you to Amazon to watch any new versions of The Rings. No, just watch the movies from Jackson from the early 2000s. So on that note,
I think we can make the solemn promise that we will see you sometime in the future.
Yes.
Depending on how many men the network send after us.
We are zigzagging our way back to our cars. We are done.
I have instructed Brian on how to make a ghillie suit, so he's going to have
I know what it is now, and I can wear it.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, remember, emails, tradtalkradio@gmail.com.
Tradtalkradio@gmail.com.
Facebook, Trad Talk Radio Facebook page.
Pope St. John the 23rd, pray for us coupon code.
Wait a minute, I think earlier it was Paul the Sixth. What happened there?
Oh, yeah, my mistake.
Hold on, there you go.
There we go.
All right. And reach out to us. Let us know. Follow the show on any platform of your choosing.
Smash that like and subscribe
bell.
Please do. Like and subscribe. No,
all right, folks.
You know what? Don't.
No.
That's made me so mad. Like, go unsubscribe. Unlike.
We're not actually saying that.
I mean, do whatever you want. I just hate patronizing people. I hate asking, like, oh, I'll go like it. I don't know. That just rubs me the wrong way.
I understand.
Yeah.
But don't unsubscribe.
Yeah, do whatever you want. Do what you want.
There you go. All right. Until next time.
Goodbye.